So at BlizzCon, we got to see a number of changes that are going to be coming to our classes in Battle for Azeroth. Now, from what I can see from these changes, it looks fairly incomplete right now. This just kind of looks like the start, so I wouldn't try to make too much of a big deal or make heads or tails of what any of this really means for the most part, but it does give us kind of a sneak peek into what the WoW team is thinking in terms of the direction of the expansion. If you want to take a closer look at these things yourself, the link is in the description down below. Now, as we go through these, you're going to notice some themes to the class changes, and those are a nerf to AoE slows, nerfs to AoE stuns, and a big change to tanks' active mitigation. So one thing you're going to notice right off the bat is pretty much anything that had a slow attached to it already, that slow is being nerfed by a good 20 to 30% across the board. And as far as the AoE stuns are concerned, well, unfortunately, Havoc, you are losing your ability to stun altogether. Your Chaos Nova is now going to be a disorient, and same with Hunter's Binding Shot is now just going to be a root. So that's 2 AoE stuns that have been completely removed from the game, and the remaining ones have had their stun duration reduced by a good amount. So why are they doing this? Well, it's my opinion that this all revolves around Mythic Plus and how AoE abilities that give some sort of CC effect to them give us a amount of control that they don't want us to have, is kind of the idea that I'm getting, is they want us to have less of that solid control, because AoE stuns especially basically negated the difficulty of some mobs and packs of mobs that were otherwise extremely hard for some classes and class comps. Like if you have a comp of a Affliction Warlock, a Rogue, and a Balance Druid, for example, they're not going to have the same lockdown potential as like a Shaman and a Warrior would have with whatever else. So I think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to balance those things out by reducing the effectiveness of slows or AoE slows and stuns. Now, what I feel like this is actually going to do is just make them even more valued, and you're going to need to have at least one of those classes that has an AoE stun in your groups for Mythic Plus. I think that's what's going to end up coming back on them as, is that it's just going to further incentivize bringing those classes, at least one of them, in every group. But who knows, maybe they won't, maybe that 2-second stun or something like that won't be as big of a deal as it was before. We'll just really have to wait and see. Moving on to the tank changes, you'll see that across the board, everyone's active mitigations are being changed from a damage reduction component to a armor gain component. So what does this mean? Armor is one of those things that a lot of people are still confused about on how it works. What exactly does armor do? There's only one class right now that uses armor as an ability, which is the Guardian Druid. That's how Ironfur works. So let me quickly explain how armor works. So armor is actually a formula that we're going to use to get to damage reduction or physical damage reduction. So the formula, I'll go ahead and put it up on screen, but the formula is armor divided by the sum of armor plus 7,390, and that will get you and then times 100, or you can read it as a decimal, either one, and that will get us our percent of damage reduction. So that's what it is right now in Legion. It has changed every expansion as we've gone on through the expansions. So I assume with the stat squish and everything that comes along with that, that we'll be seeing a new formula. It'll probably look similar to this, but the constant number will change. That 7,390 will be some other number. So if we were to plug in these damage reductions or these armor gains into the current formula, it's going to be really wonky. So a 10% armor gain on, let's just take a this was what my Death Knight was at. Let's take 8,119. Let's say that's how much armor we have with a 10% armor gain. That gets us to 8,930.9, and that would mean we would be going from our normal resting armor, what we just passively have, which gives us a damage reduction of 52.35%. It would only be going up when we use Morrowind to 54.72%. So basically a 2.5% gain of damage reduction for Morrowind, which is just feels so impactful. Or not impactful. Well, it does not feel impactful. Let me correct myself there. So I don't think that these numbers are to be used right now. I think these are just kind of placeholders. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, if you look at the Demon Hunter with 150% armor gain, that actually would be better as far as physical damage is concerned. That would actually be better than what the current system has in place for their damage reduction. So depending on which tank you are, it can be better or worse. Obviously, the other side of it is that you can't defend against magic with armor. It has no reduction there. So again, don't worry too much about the percentages. I did a lot of number crunching last night, and all I came to the conclusion of is these percentages under our current gear will just not make sense. So don't read too much into that right now. I'm sure it'll flesh itself out as we go along. So yeah, now that I've spent all that time explaining something to basically say don't worry about it, let's move on to what that means. So what I think that really means is that your active mitigations are going to be used for pretty much smoothing out damage throughout a run, the defending against auto attacks, as well as dealing with some big boss ability that will be physical. Now, we've left ourselves up open to magic damage now. That's one of the things that we're kind of losing our defense against across the board for all tanks. We're all losing magical defense. So what does that mean? I think that that's going to be the big bad abilities that we're going to have to look out for, and the healers will have to look out for as well, because we won't have stuff to defend ourselves. Well, we will. We'll have our big, long cooldowns like our Guardian of the Ancient Kings, Survival Instincts, our Fortifying Brews. We'll have those things. And so along with our healers having to be paying more attention to big bursts of magical damage, we're going to have to commit more resources to magical damage, and they'll feel more impactful, so we'll have to commit more to them. And I think that's the idea, is before we could just kind of throw up our active mitigation, that will have our resource that we needed to use it back within, the next 5 seconds. Instead, now moving forward, when you see that big magic ability about to come out and you're going to have to commit Guardian of the Ancient Kings to it, that's a 5-minute cooldown you're going to have to use. So if you used it beforehand, you've really messed yourself up. So I think they really want us to plan out using our big cooldowns in a more meaningful way than we do them now in Mythic Plus. And there's some other interesting notes in these class changes that I won't talk about in too much depth. For instance, like Breath of Fire being given a damage reduction in this, what seems like this age that we're moving towards armor, as well as the weirdest of the bunch, which is Ignore Pain being changed to a damage reduction that reduces your rage, but it lasts 4 seconds. It sounds like it should be more of a toggle, so maybe you'll end up that way at some point where you toggle it on, and when you have it on, you're reducing your rage by 60%, and it will just kind of eat away at your rage. But right now, it's 4 seconds, and reduces your damage by 60%, and reduces your rage as you take damage. So that's kind of a really weird change. We'll see how that pans out. I'm sure that one will change again. And finally, we'll be getting our raid buffs back. Yay! Personally, I actually really like these, as they really helped promote class diversity. They kind of gave the classes some identity as to what they were trying to do. And, on top of all of it, it was just kind of fun to see them all up there as well. So there's a couple new ones, and a lot of them have been changed. But some of them, you can just read them if you want. I don't have to read them out to you. But as you can see, some of them are way more powerful than others. Particularly the Rogue and Warlock ones are kind of out of control on how good they are. Rogues and Warlocks are going to be pretty much auto-includes. Pretty much most of them are. But then you have some of the weaker ones like DK's having Leech, and the paladin having the armor increase probably won't be as useful, but then again, we don't even know what the shaman one is yet. So these are all most likely subject to change. The values are all subject to change. So the only thing that I really take away from this is that, yay, they're coming back. Hopefully they keep that and that doesn't get scrapped. I just think they're a fun little addition that doesn't really hurt the game in any way, especially when with Mythic being 20 players. You know, you should be seeing all of those classes represented. I think that's what Blizzard wants anyway, is total class representation at the high end. I think that would make them the most happy, and this is one step to kind of help push it in that direction. And that's pretty much it. Those are the major changes that I really wanted to talk about as we move forward into Battle for Azeroth. There's a couple more talent changes that you can find on Wowhead as well, but those are very class specific and I'm not going to sit here and talk about them all individually. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I will see you guys next time.